Piracy. It's a word that triggers a mix of fear, anger, and sometimes reluctant admiration. In the world of video games, piracy is one of the most hotly debated topics. Is it theft, or is it a form of protest? Is it a parasite leeching off of developers, or a necessary evil that keeps the industry honest? Today, we're not here to glorify piracy or shame those who oppose it. We're here to just have an honest little conversation. Something I've been thinking about in the back of my mind for a while now, as I've grown up, about why video game piracy, despite the controversy, might actually be, dare I say, a good thing, or at least far more complicated than the simple bad guy label that it's often given. Let's start with the moral framing. For years, companies have pushed a simple message. Piracy is stealing. They equate downloading a game without paying for it to walking into a store and grabbing it off the shelf. But let's pause for a second. Is copying a digital file, one that can be indefinitely reproduced at no extra cost, truly the same as stealing a physical item? When someone pirates a game, they don't deprive the developer of a physical good or a physical purchase. The product still exists. The studio still has it. And importantly, the person pirating might never have bought the game in the first place. In fact, according to a 2017 study from the European Commission, the majority of game pirates would not have purchased the game if piracy wasn't available. That means many of those lost sales, in air quotes, weren't actually sales to begin with at all. Now let's get into something that doesn't get talked about enough. Game preservation. If you care about the history of games, piracy has been an unsung hero. Think about it. How many classic games are locked behind old hardware, dead storefronts, or licensing nightmares? Ever tried to legally play PT, the famous Silent Hill demo? You can't, because it's gone, delisted forever, and it only exists on those PlayStation 4 consoles that were able to actually download the demo and keep the demo. Again, also pirates were able to preserve it and get it off of some of those consoles. This goes for hundreds of old PlayStation 1 and PC games that would have been lost to time if not for ROM sites and piracy groups. The industry isn't doing a great job of preserving its own legacy. Companies like Nintendo are quick to shut down ROM archives, even when they have no plans to re-release the games themselves. Piracy in many ways has kept the history of gaming alive, when the industry itself seemed determined to erase it. Now, another overlooked aspect of piracy, I would say, is sampling. How many times have you looked at a $70 price tag and thought, is this really worth it? With no demos, no refunds, and plenty of games launching broken, consumers are often asked to gamble on their purchase. Again, in that sort of landscape, piracy has sort of become, ironically, a consumer protection tool, because some players pirate a game to test performance, stability, or gameplay quality before deciding whether or not to actually go through with that purchase. And again, in many cases, they do go and buy it afterwards. Not all the time, but sometimes. Now, it's not the most ideal system, but it exists because trust between players and publishers has been eroded several times over the years. When broken releases like Cyberpunk 2077 or the day before hit the market, players are rightfully cautious. Piracy is a symptom of that broken trust, not the cause of it. Again, there's another angle that's rarely often discussed, which is piracy as protest. When players in poorer regions are priced out of the market, piracy becomes a form of resistance. Think about it. A $70 game might be affordable in the US or Western Europe, but in other countries, it's often more than a week's wage. The industry's pricing model is deeply unfair in many parts of the world. Region-based pricing exists, but it's inconsistent and not done far nearly enough to balance the scales. Because services get geo-blocked, and some stores don't even operate in some countries. So again, for some, piracy is the only access point to gaming culture. It's not about entitlement, it's about inequality. And while publishers have the legal right to control distribution, we should question whether that control always aligns with moral or ethical fairness. Now let's get real. Not all piracy is created equal. Most gamers understand this. The culture of piracy often draws ethical lines. And one of the most clearest ethical lines that is often drawn is between massive corporations and small indie developers. When someone pirates a game from a big corporation, there's usually an argument made about corporate greed, bad DRM, or predatory monetization. But when it comes to indie games, even pirates tend to tread carefully. Many choose to support smaller devs because they understand what's at stake for those devs. And for me, that's kind of an important distinction because piracy isn't inherently good. It becomes dangerous when it targets the wrong people, but even then, it reflects a larger truth that value is subjective and trust in the industry is fragile. Now, let's talk about DRM, digital rights management, because it's one of the biggest reasons why piracy persists. DRM is supposed to stop piracy, but more often than not, it just punishes paying customers. Always online requirements, limited installs, third-party launchers, they make playing games legally worse than pirating them. Meanwhile, cracked versions of the same games tend to run smoother offline and with fewer restrictions. When piracy starts to offer a better experience than buying legally, the problem isn't the pirates, it's the industry. Now, going back to the elephant in the room, sales. Does piracy hurt developers? Now, it can, but it's not as simple as one download equals one lost sale. Because multiple studies have concluded that the economic impact of piracy is sort of difficult to quantify and often overstated. Because some games actually see increased sales after being pirated and shared widely. Word of mouth, modding communities, and exposure can actually drive legitimate purchases, especially if the game is good. If we look back at The Witcher 3, CD Projekt Red famously released it without DRM, encouraging fans to buy it if they liked it, and it sold millions. Now contrast that with Spore, one of the most pirated games ever, due in large part to its aggressive DRM. The lesson? If you respect your audience, they might respect you back. Now, what does the future look like? Subscription models like Game Pass and PlayStation Plus have definitely made gaming more accessible, but they still depend on infrastructure, licensing deals, and regional support. As cloud gaming grows, there's a real danger that ownership will vanish completely, replaced by licenses and access gates. In that world, piracy might evolve again. Not just as a way to get games, but as a way to keep them. A way to archive and preserve what might otherwise be lost to time, server shutdowns, and DRM decay. If we don't fight for digital preservation, someone else will. And that someone is often the pirates. Now, is video game piracy good? To me, it's not a clean-cut yes, but it's also not a clean-cut no either. Piracy is a complex ecosystem, one that includes preservations, protests, curious players, and yes, some freeloaders. But reducing it to a crime without understanding the context behind it does more harm than good. Instead of demonizing piracy, maybe it's time we ask why it exists in the first place. Why are players turning to cracked versions instead of legal ones? Why do some players want to pay but can't? Why is it easier to play a pirated game than a legal one? If the industry truly wants to combat piracy, the answer isn't more DRM. It's better access, fairer pricing, fewer restrictions, and most of all, respect for the players when releasing the products. Piracy didn't invent all of the problems that the industry is facing. It's just the mirror that's reflecting it. Thanks for watching.
Screw it!
Right there.
Shit!
Imagine having to put down your own brother.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Died last time. Come on, let's go. Woo! Let's go. It's those father-son moments again. Oh, but now Freya's here as well.
That if you just build great games, everything would turn around.
And then the great games point is the one that I wanted to argue against heavily, because what is the point of your console if it's not for games? Like, what is the point of having a console if you're just going to do Game Pass and cloud gaming? Like,